Welcome back, everyone, to another Forge College Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled to have you here. Look, if you're an Ethereum developer stepping into the world of Solana for the first time, you are probably experiencing a serious bit of culture shock right now. It's kind of like moving from a quaint town where everyone waits politely in a single-file line straight to a bustling metropolis where a million things are happening simultaneously. So today, we are putting on our lead engineer hats and tackling one of the absolute most critical phases of that migration. We are translating EVM vulnerability categories into the SVM context. Because, as we're going to see, an exploit on Ethereum doesn't just neatly copy-paste over to Solana. Okay, let's quickly review today's architectural blueprint. First, why translate EVM to SVM? Second, the core mapping pattern. Then we'll hit 3 case studies: decoding reentrancy, gas griefing, and access control. Finally, we'll wrap up with from blueprints to checklists. Let's dive in. Section 1. Why translate EVM to SVM? Moving from scope to action. If you recall from our previous lesson, framing the audit, scope and objectives for EVM and SVM security differences, we mapped out the trust boundaries for a migrated system. Now, we actually have to turn those into concrete checks. And hey, EVM habits die hard, don't they? Think about the EVM mental model. You've got synchronous execution, you're paying for gas per opcode, and the state is implicit. Ethereum operates on very linear, straightforward rules. But then you look at the SVM mental model, parallel execution via Sealevel, completely explicit account data, and rent logic. Honestly, it's like comparing checkers to 3D chess. The fundamental physical laws of the universe are just different here. You simply cannot assume an EVM label maps directly to an identical SVM failure mode. Section 2. The core mapping pattern. The master framework. Because direct one-to-one translations of vulnerabilities usually fail miserably, we need a reliable framework. And here it is, this 5-step mapping pattern. Think of this as your absolute ultimate engineering flow chart. Step 1, identify the source category, something like reentrancy. Step 2, define the EVM root cause, like what specific Ethereum assumption actually enables this. Step 3 is the SVM assessment. Step 4 is the SVM manifestation. What does this literally look like on Solana? And finally, Step 5 lists the security assumptions you absolutely must record. Stick to this pattern, and I promise you, your audits are going to be defensible and fully traceable. Let's zoom in on Step 3 for just a second, the SVM assessment. This is crucial because it's the pivot point of our entire framework. This is where we essentially put the EVM illness under an SVM microscope. We are assessing one of 3 things. Does the vulnerability persist, meaning it's exactly the same? Is it absent, meaning it's just literally impossible under Solana's architecture? Or does it morph, meaning the underlying logic flaw mutates into a brand new failure mode? Section 3. Case study. Decoding reentrancy. Parallel execution. Reentrancy, the classic. It is everyone's favorite EVM headache, and the culprit behind some of the most infamous hacks in crypto history. But I really want you to think about this question. Can you actually reenter a parallel execution? In the EVM, reentrancy relies on synchronous single-threaded call stacks, right? You call a contract and it calls you back before your first function even finishes updating its state. But on Solana, transactions run in parallel. That whole traditional synchronous call stack assumption entirely breaks down. So let's walk through how this mapping actually plays out in reality. The EVM root cause is that synchronous call stack. Our SVM assessment, it morphs. Traditional stack-based reentrancy is highly unlikely on Solana, mostly thanks to explicit account access lists. However, look at the SVM manifestation. It mutates into logical race conditions. If multiple transactions or cross-program invocations, CPIs, access the exact same accounts without appropriate write locking, an attacker can exploit that timing to cause inconsistent state transitions. So your security assumptions to record must explicitly include whether the program requires strict serial execution or off-chain sequencing. Section 4. Case study. Gas griefing. Resource exhaustion. This is all about how attackers try to drain your resources or just flat out halt your program. And it brings up a really funny question if you're coming from the Ethereum world. Where did all the gas go? We get so incredibly obsessed with counting gas for every single opcode. But on Solana, that per opcode gas measurement simply does not exist in the same way. So if an attacker can't just spam expensive opcodes to grief your contract, what are they going to do instead? Well, they adapt. Let's look at our mapping framework again. The EVM cause here is per opcode metering. Our SVM assessment, Once again, it morphs. The attacker just shifts their focus entirely. The SVM manifestation becomes compute budget exhaustion. A totally benign-looking instruction sequence that spawns way too many CPIs can instantly blow your compute budget and fail the transaction. Alternatively, an attacker might try to bloat your accounts just to force elevated rent, which completely changes the economic incentives of your protocol. So your recorded assumptions need to lock down exactly what your compute limits and expected transaction sizes are. Section 5. Case Study. Access Control. Explicit Ownership. Making sure that only the right people can do the right things with the right assets sounds pretty simple, right? But it is a massive surface area for bugs. Let's break this one down. In the EVM, the root cause is very often mutable storage patterns. Think admin flags or ownership addresses just sitting out there in contract storage, waiting to be wrongly overwritten. On the SVM, this morphs into something uniquely Solana. Why? Because account ownership on Solana is an explicit runtime property. It's completely separate from the program logic itself. So the SVM manifestation usually looks like an unauthorized account reassignment, an unprotected program upgrade authority, or just a failure to assert necessary signer checks in an instruction. You absolutely must document exactly who holds the upgrade authority and which keys are your required signers. Now, writing all of this out for every single vulnerability by hand can get super tedious, especially when you're coordinating across a whole audit team. So here's a quick pro tip bonus for you. You can easily write a minimal Python JSON script to automatically generate these drafting blocks for you. Source category, root cause, assessment, manifestation, assumptions. It keeps all of your output perfectly uniform, making it incredibly easy to gather mappings from multiple auditors and import them straight into your issue tracker. Remember, we want to work smarter, not harder. Section 6. From blueprints to checklists. Actionable insights. Okay, we have done the conceptual heavy lifting today. We mapped out the entirely new physical laws of our system. But how do we actually make this actionable? Here are your 3 big guiding principles to take away from this explainer. First, always favor precise root cause reasoning over simply translating a label. Second, treat those SVM primitives, like explicit account ownership, parallel execution, and compute budgets, as the primary factors that alter the vulnerability. And third, always attach your recorded security assumptions to every single mapping entry. Understanding the underlying primitive is vastly more important than just matching a vulnerability name from your old Ethereum days. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Now that you have these incredibly detailed drafted mappings, how will you prioritize them for your final actionable audit checklist? That is exactly what we are going to be covering in our very next module. I really hope this mapping framework helps you shift your security mindset safely from EVM to SVM. As a reminder, this explainer was brought to you by Forge College. If you want to dive deeper into this topic and explore a ton of other incredible Web3 engineering resources, head straight over to Forge College. Thanks so much for watching, keep building securely, and I'll see you in the next one.